All right. We got another Great Prospect podcast today with Coach Watkins from Pennington Prep. We're looking forward to talking to him. I have Coach D, as always, on the right or the left of me, depending on which way you're viewing it. I think it's the right. And we're excited to talk to him about, since he's taking over the program, some of the things that he's doing there and finding out more. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
It's really so Pennington Prep's out in Pennington, New Jersey, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. So you kind of multiple different roles. You're head football coach. You're in charge of admissions. You're the athletic liaison. You're really, really active within the community there. Before we dive into a lot of those things, talk about your background as a coach and how you got into it as a player and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So, like most coaches, I was playing football since I was a kid, 7 years old, and, start playing CYO football. And once I got done playing in college at Kane University, I had an opportunity to join the staff over at Princeton University in the sprint football program. So that was a great situation for me to learn as a coach. Sprint football is a very unique thing where, everybody was 172 pounds and under. And, so your left tackle is the same size as your wide receiver and your right guard. So you got to really learn how to become a good teacher on the field. So, like I said, I did that for 5 years. And then it was time for me to move back home and ended up at Bishop McDevitt in Wyncote, and that's where I went to school. Me and all my brothers and my mom and my dad were there, and McDevitt was something that was real special for me. So I went back home and I coached there 2 years as a defensive coordinator, and then became the head coach for 5 years. The Archdiocese decided to close the doors at Bishop McDevitt in 2021, and that brought me over to Archbishop Wood. So I was at Archbishop Wood for 1 year, kind of trying to figure out what my next move was. And then an opportunity came about at the Pennington School. And, for me as, a Philadelphia Catholic League guy and I planned on spending my entire career there. But this was such an interesting opportunity. I didn't know anything about the independent school world and being able to work at a boarding school. So, finishing up my third year here at Pennington, I came on board my first year to help Jerry Uri out with his final year. Came in as the offensive coordinator and have been the head coach now, just finished my second season. So it's been a ride.
Coach, what was the biggest change from going from Archbishop Wood to Pennington? What were some of the things that were different struggles and things that you had to do, and good things as well that you had to really deal with coming from there to go into Pennington?
Yeah, I mean, they're two different worlds, two different types of schools. Our acceptance rate at Pennington's about 22%. So, we have anywhere about, 900 applicants every year, and it's extremely competitive. But I think, the biggest thing is that we're a global school. So we have kids that come from 42 different countries. We have, kids from Canada last year. We had kids from the Czech Republic, the Gambia, which is a small little country in West Africa, Mexico. So we really are a global program. And, it's just been an adjustment, in terms of, who's the target audience. We can't cast this broad net and try to reel in all the kids that we can. Pennington's really about, finding the right fit. And there's an academic requirement. Academics have to matter here. It's extremely important that, that's at the forefront. And like I said, it's not an easy school to get into. So you just got to be really, really intentional about, who you're looking at and who you think not only can just get in, but can actually be successful here for, 3-4 years.
That's really important thing. I mean, academics are such a big deal there. Now, competitive wise, is that something? Because do you play like Hun School and Petty School and those Blair? Is that the same division league that you guys are in?
So we're in the Maple League. This year was our first year in it. Hun is not a member of the Maple League, but with football anyway. So it's the Pennington School it's the Hill School, Blair Academy, and Petty. And, and we play other schools, like the Interact schools over in Pennsylvania. So our schedule's pretty much mixed up between Interact schools and Maple schools.
And do you have like fifth year as well? Do you have the grad year kids as well?
Yeah, we're the only school, I think, in the Maple for football that does not have post grads. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So you could play basically schedule wise whoever you want to play because of the fact that you don't have a post grad roster of guys, so you don't have to work around that at all.
Correct. Yeah. Now the students are able to reclassify when they come to Pennington.
Okay.
And essentially it ends up becoming very similar to being a post grad year. The difference is, you don't have a 19-year-old, they could repeat as a 14 or 15-year-old kid. But it's what worked for our school. It's worked for our community. And, I look at it as, we got a great opportunity here. We want guys to be here for 2 to 3 years.
Very cool. Very cool. As far as what you did philosophically, so when you went in there, you came in there 1 year as office coordinator, going in with your buddy, and then taking over the program. What were some of the things philosophically you had to do? Were there any things that you had to change? Added? What did you do from that standpoint?
I mean, so Jerry Uri was the head football coach here for about 34 years.
Yep.
He's an alum of the school. He's a staple in not just, Mercer County, but just New Jersey high school football. Jerry's a legend around here. So it was really important for me to get that year to understand the school, the community, how things work, in working with him. Now, just like when I took over at McDevitt, I took over for who was my head coach at the time, back in 1999, Pat Manzi. So it was a very similar situation. So I felt really comfortable working with Jerry, taking a year with him. He was a great resource for me, but like I did at McDevitt, it's kind of my own spin on the program and, wanted to implement certain things that I like to do. When you take over a program, it's 12 months a year. We're not just coaching football here. It's a full program, an investment in the community, the school, the culture. I needed to learn about, the alumni. I wanted to know what their experiences were and just get them back. So,
right.
And it takes time, we're going to do things the right way here. It's not going to be a quick build. We're going to do it kind of, we used to say at McDevitt, brick by brick. And, we're taking that same approach here at Pennington, just kind of 1 year at a time, get to know the community, get to know the alumni and do it the right way.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, I'm sure, because those relationships help bring stability to the program and bring in, continued financial success too for the program. Are you on do you live on campus? Because I remember when we interviewed the head coach at Petty. I think he lives on campus. Do you live on campus as well? Or?
So I do not. I live about 45 minutes away, and I don't mind the commute. I've gotten used to it. I have 3 daughters at home, and it's kind of nice to just put sports talk radio on and just cruise in.
That's really cool. It's and what percentage of your kids are like kids that live on versus commute?
We're very much more of a day school than we are a boarding.
Okay.
Our boarding community consists of about 140 boarders. We're co-ed. But yeah, it's a very small portion. We're a little different than some of the New England boarding schools where they're kind of the other way around. So
and we've talked to some of those guys, like some of those guys that house the students on campus, right? I mean, it's much more of a almost lean more towards college-like setting than it is, a high school setting. And like you said, it has to be the right fit because, you have daughters. I don't know how old, but I don't know how many of those guys are willing to send a daughter to a boarding school, as a freshman in high school or as a sophomore. Right. So it's definitely got to be the right fit. Do you find it, Coach, more difficult to find those students that or those student athletes, and especially for football players that kind of fit that mold, along with the academic side of it? Is it more difficult, or or you got just that, high price of a commodity, right, where they're coming to you?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's a challenge for sure. We're looking for extremely high academic kids, and it's not cheap to go to a school like Pennington. So the investment on the financial side is massive. It's a true commitment. So finding a kid, that has a high GPA, that does a lot of things in the classroom really well, can afford the school, and can play football. It's almost like a unicorn, trying to find.
Yeah.
So, but we work really hard in the community and do the best we can to kind of market our school to drum up some interest. People want to join a winner, right? So the biggest thing is we got to win some football games in order for those guys to say, hey, this is a place we want to get to know a little bit more about. But yeah, it takes a long time to kind of build those relationships and find out, is this family a good fit? Not just the student, but is this family a good fit for the school?
Well, it's interesting because the prep schools have really improved dramatically over the years. It used to really be like one or two really good athletes that they were able to help out, and the rest of the kids were students that went to the school that were playing football or playing the sport, right? That's changed a lot. So you're having kids that are going to be focused more on their sport and want to leverage Pennington from an academic standpoint to help them advance that. Talk about that at kind of how the makeup of your team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people see the value. The school sees the value in what a legitimate football program can bring to a school. And it is important here. We have outstanding soccer here. Our boys and girls soccer programs are both nationally ranked. Our basketball team has done a really, really nice job. Baseball, there's a commitment there. Lacrosse, where it's something that we're building. So, it's something that the school recognizes. Athletics is extremely important as part of the educational experience. But through football, we've had our challenges, but we're a small roster. We got about 32 guys on the roster, and that was a big change for me coming from a school like Archbishop Wood and Bishop McDevitt, where you have 65, 85 guys. Now it's like, man, you got to really get creative at practice on how you're going to do this thing. So. But yeah, the school has been extremely supportive, in wanting to build this thing and looking at it where, we're going to look at the whole picture of an applicant, that it's not just about what's the report card look like, but it's like, what do they bring to the table in the community?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. What do they bring to the table? You're in the application process. So that's a good part from a football standpoint. You're able to see those applications firsthand, which I think is always a good thing as a football coach, to be able to have some level of a good look, to be able to put your stamp on it and be able to negotiate if necessary to get the players that you need. Talk about your program as far as your 365 days. What does that look like around your program?
Yeah. So when the students arrive in August, for camp, it's so different for us. We lose about a third of our roster every year, right?
Right.
Kids graduate, or we don't get kids, because they're coming from different countries, and we don't get to see them till August 17th, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, so once we kind of get settled in, we're really shot out of a cannon. We jump right into trying to make up. We're not together all summer, doing 7-on-7s together, going to camps together. Guys are all scattered once school ends, so they all kind of go to where home is. So once we get here in August, it's we're doing a ton of meetings. We're on the field at least twice a day. A morning and then a late afternoon, and then we'll have nighttime meetings. But once we get into school, we're rolling. Football is about 6 days a week. Guys are off on Sundays, and what we like to do is our boarding students, they'll work with our strength and conditioning coach in the morning. Our day students, they'll do their lifts in season after practice. So the fall is really, really busy, for our guys, obviously. But our schedule, it's a little different than the Philadelphia Catholic League or being in the PIAA, where you can go all the way till December. we're done in early November, no matter what. Right from there, we kind of things cool down a little bit, but we gear up training once we get back from Thanksgiving break and, gearing up for the next year. But, throughout that time, I'm looking at that next batch of kids who we're going to have apply to the school and so forth. But, our winter from January to June looks like most other people's. We're in the weight room 4 days a week. Once April 8th. So starting next week, we'll get out on the field, and we'll be out there twice a week, just doing standard workouts, no equipment or anything like that. But yeah, it's pretty good schedule. But it's like I said, it's we're shot out of a cannon. Once the kids get here, we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time.
Do you see a lot of coaches coming on campus? So do you do like any workouts for them or any of that kind of stuff?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're, one of the things that I'm extremely passionate about is, getting guys opportunities to play at the next level. So, and if anyone that wants to play, we can help find them a home. If it's, whether you're an FBS kid, FCS kid, if you're a Division III kid, an NAIA kid, it doesn't matter. If it's something that you want, we'll help you find it. So we've had a lot of traffic, since my time here at Pennington with college coaches coming through. And, I've had a lot of success in the past of, helping place kids in college. And, but yeah, so once April 15th hits, that's when, the contact period or the live eval period opens up and colleges will start to come through and watch our guys work out.
Very cool. Very cool. What is it about the academic part? So for people who don't really understand, like talk about like how the rigors are for like a typical football player. Like if they, if they were in their day in the spring or their day in the fall, what does that look like for them?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a challenging schedule. Academically, we're going to challenge the kids in the classroom, and we're looking for guys that want to be challenged in the classroom. So it's a very structured day. Like you said, they'll start their workout at 6 a.m., eat breakfast at 7:30, get ready for their academic day. And then it doesn't end there. So from, you get 30 to 45 minutes after school where they're meeting with teachers. And then they have 2 hours of study hall every single night. So it's a very well carved out, well thought out plan as to what's going to make these students successful. And, we're able with this schedule, we're able to balance, what we're doing with training, what we're doing with football, how we're teaching things, and, making sure that they got the proper time to do all the work that they need.
It's very much set up like a college, which is, what they're going to, except, I guess the majority of them commute, but it's the same kind of similar setup, right? As far as, how you kind of work them through, and I'm not talking about physically, but like from the time they come in as a freshman, like what's your expectations of them? How does that evolve over the next few years from a development standpoint? So a kid comes into you 9th grade or 10th grade, whatever it is, and where do you kind of get them from there?
Yeah, and there's always an adjustment period, coming to a school like this where, the amount of work that you get, the expectations academically, and then the expectations that we have, athletically as well. So you give them a little bit of time, you give them a little bit of grace, but once, you're in it for 2 to 3 weeks, they really settle in, and the school does such a nice job of having so much support. Everyone has their advisor that they meet with once a week. Teachers do a great job of making sure they're accessible. There's just so much support here to make sure that if a kid starts to slip back, it's not on the coach to go, hey, you're not doing this, or, we have advisors, we have people in place that are going to make sure, our students are successful. So that part's been great. And then they start to really take ownership and they kind of find their way a little bit. And then they start to really embrace the younger guys, help bring them along and help show them. So it's a very unique situation. And, I love it because when our students graduate, they're ready for college. They truly are, and that's something that, we like to do, we like to talk to these college coaches about. You're going to get a kid that's college ready. They're going to work in in a college, offense, they're going to not only, have the football side covered, but the social side of living with another student, just working with study hall and all those sort of things.
What is recruiting wise? Has there been a lot of changes for you, or is everything similar than what it was? Is you guys affected by transfer portal, NIL,
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah, the whole world's changed, right? Since the portal and now with NIL, and it's just different. We just got to keep going at this thing. Like, if you want to play in college, we got to work our tails off, and it's my job to communicate with as many schools as I can and get their guys' film out and make sure that I'm always on the phone. I'm always working the phones, trying to make sure guys are going to take long looks at our guys. And but yeah, that's a fact right now that every high school in the country, not just Pennington, is facing. There's truly less. Some schools, they'll say that they're not in the portal, but they all are, and they all have to be, right, because their jobs are on the line and they have to win now. Now the NIL component has really changed a lot, and it's changed a lot about the way kids approach their recruitment. It used to be, well, what's the best fit? Now the guy says, okay, well, there's a big bag of money over here. That might not be the best fit, but there's that bag of money. So what are we going to do? So I try to, I take a lot of pride in meeting with each of our guys, as they go through this process and say, well, what's important to you? What is it? Is it the conference that you play in? Is it early playing time, player development? Is it the degree that you're going to get? So the recruitment, it's totally different, and you got to always be ready to adjust to it because dates are always changing, and it's really, it's never just kind of a cookie cutter thing. This is how it always is. So.
Well, Coach, I do think that, you have the benefit of what a lot of other, say schools right now, public school guys, high school guys don't have, is that you can sell your kids and college coaches on, hey, man, you're getting basically a portal guy because he's already got a year or two in the closest to a college setting a high school person can get, right? So I'm sure that's a huge selling point for you. And then just even the size of your roster allows you to get more individualized in the recruitment process with each one of your players. And then on top of that, just a third point is if guys are coming to Pennington, they already have a certain mindset and a certain standard that they're holding themselves accountable for. So how do you see that differing? The student athlete themselves differ from when you were at, your school over in PA before that? How is that different, in the setting that you're at now?
Well, you're right. I think the mindset is different, about the kids that are coming to Pennington. They think they know what to expect, but they have all the right. They got the right mindset. They know that it's going to be a challenge. Things are not going to be easy academically. We're going to have to really learn how to manage your time.
Right.
And look, the kids they're eating 4 meals a day here, so they got to really learn how to be a roommate. You got to learn how to kind of grow up a lot quicker than most other high school kids do.
Damn right. Yeah.
And that's you're right. That is a selling point for us when I am talking to a college coach. If Rutgers walks in or Penn State walks in or Syracuse or whoever, we're gonna say, like, our guys have lived in dorms. They know what it's
right.
like.
They're ready made. Yeah. They're good to go. You're not dealing with some 17-year-old high school kid who really does need those 2 years to develop. And hey, I can't take that guy right now out of high school, but I can go get a portal guy. And look, your guys are portal made. Like, they are portal guys. They have a year or two with those experiences of dealing with roommates, being away from home, having to handle the high rigors of classes and all of those types of things. Like, you're really like, why wouldn't somebody, a college coach come on campus and get that guy right away? So like I said, it's really a good selling point for you to kind of hammer that home with these guys that are now, we see it. Everybody's in the portal. You said it yourself, right? Like, those guys they're looking for ready-made guys. The whole development side of college football is really starting to get squeezed and pushed because of the push to win now. Right? College coaches are dealing with that all the time. So to get a ready-made guy coming from high school that's already like ready to go, I mean, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, it's a unique situation. Like I said, we got a great strength and conditioning coach. Most high school kids aren't going to get, the types of resources that we're able to kind of throw at them and get them ready. And you're absolutely right. And Bill Belichick was here in January, and we had that conversation. Is that he does like recruiting, the prep schools, the New Englands and
right.
The schools around here, because they are going to come into college with an understanding as to, what's it look like off the field.
Right.
Are you finding that colleges, it seems like they are actually, from what you're saying, are they coming in person still in the same breath that they were before?
They are. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're getting a ton of traffic. We had, probably about 50 schools stop through in January. And, it's tough for me because that's a heavy, part of our cycle.
Admissions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's my 9 to 5, right? That's my day job. And
well, that's your livelihood of your school itself. So you ain't got that coaching. You ain't letting those, if you don't have that, and being, I'm sure it throws a wrinkle into it too, Coach, being co-ed, right?
Yeah.
So you're totally factoring in a lot of those other dynamics that go into it, along with trying to meet with college coaches coming in the building.
Yeah, I mean, we would get, and it's, like anything, they all want to come at the same time, so
100%.
You're trying to juggle those types of schedules where you got 4 coaches, 3 of them are in the lobby waiting, and then I got an admission interview in about 20 minutes, so I got to get 4 meetings done in 20 minutes. So, but it's really good, and I think, college recruiting for football, it's so different than any other sport. It's so much more kind of in your face in public, and obviously with social media, everybody knows, who's got what offer. And now next thing you know, a West Coast coach is calling me and saying, hey, I really like this kid. And, they'll be out here to see us in the spring. So it is wild how things have changed. But I would say the foot traffic, on my end, it seems that it's picked up more.
And you would say more so from when you got to Pennington itself, or more so from when you were in Pennsylvania?
More so from when I was in Pennsylvania.
Got it.
And we had some great prospects at this, at McDevitt and Archbishop Wood. And, we got guys that are playing in the Big Ten right now, playing in the ACC. But, I mean, we're just, I just think with the evolution of college football and kind of where it's gone, they know that they got to work harder than the next guy. So it's all about building relationships. So they're going to make sure, whether it's the recruiting guy or whoever it might be, they're constantly communicating and they're here a lot. So,
what advice do you give your players with respect to recruiting? Because there is, I'm sure a lot of your players have high expectations of where they want to go. How do you advise them through that process, especially since not as many high school guys are taken as before?
It's really about slowing it down and trying to appreciate it. You're getting, 14 and 15-year-old kids that are getting offers from schools like Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Florida. And it's great. It's great that they get that type of exposure and that, that kind of recognition, but they're still 14, 15, 16 years old. And so I try to be there for them as much as I can, to lean on them. They do get stressed out. And as you guys know, you go right from one offer to now you're sitting at 12, and then you're going to be at 20 within 3 weeks. And it's just kind of, how that process works. But I meet with all my players, a ton, and we have a lot. I got, 32 players on the roster. That's 32 different kinds of relationships that I have with them. And the guys that are getting recruited pretty heavily, we go through our exercise, of, like I said earlier, what's important to you in this process. And every couple of weeks we sit down and we go over that. It can get extremely overwhelming, especially for a kid that's, coming from Canada, or a kid that's coming from Germany. And, now all of a sudden, USC's at the door knocking, and so is Syracuse, and so is Rutgers. And, just being able to manage that and handle that. It's, the best thing that I can do is just be there for them, kind of help them slow it down and try to block out the noise and some of the distractions that come along with being a high profile, highly recruited kid.
Is there a time frame? Yeah, there.
No, I was gonna ask. I know, like, because you said, Coach, you wear a lot of hats, and admissions is your 9 to 5. What does your staff makeup look like? How many full timers do you have? Are there guys on campus on the regular? How does that break down for you so that ultimately you get some help when these guys are coming in and out of the lobby?
Yeah. So I have 3 assistant coaches that work in the building here, and they're all teachers, kind of spread throughout the building. And then I have another 3 assistant coaches that have full-time jobs elsewhere that come here for practice. But when it comes to the recruiting side of things, I take the lead on that and really, kind of take that on. And honestly, it's something that I really enjoy and I am passionate about.
Yeah.
So, I want to make sure I have my hands in on each conversation and, it can help kind of get through some of the cobwebs or some of the things that the students may not necessarily understand what the coaches are saying. So I'm there to help support them.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, and figuring out too where they should go. Do you have like a time frame that you try to give them? Like, let's say a school offers them, or a couple schools offer them, but they're not a 4 or 5 star where they're going to have kind of unlimited availability. Unlimited recruiting. How do you advise them in that process? Because that's, I found, very, very difficult, because a lot of players are like, you can lose an offer, right, if you wait too long because it goes to this guy or whatever. How do you advise them in that process?
So the families, everyone has to invest in the process, right? So getting on campus, to me, might be the most important thing, and not waiting for your official visit to where the schools can pay for it, but actually getting on campus, seeing, is this a place that I want to continue to build my relationship with? Can I see myself living here? Take football out of it. Can I live at this place? Can I be here, 10, 11 months a year? That's extremely important. As far as the timeline's concerned, most people now, because a lot of official visits are happening June going into their senior year, that's kind of about the time of when, we're looking to see some commitments, guys making decisions prior to starting their senior year. But it's extremely important, because right now, we got, a class of 28 kid that's got a lot of offers, and he's going through the process. And I told the family, I said, you guys, you got to start deciding, which schools you're interested in that you want to get on campus. So, and schools want to see that investment from the families too, that they're willing to, on their own dime to go and check it out, because once you get the offer, and we know this, that starts the recruitment. That doesn't, it's not just get the offer and then, okay, I'll move on to the next. And here we go. Like, if that's an offer that you're really serious about, let's start talking about some plans of getting there to watch either spring practice, or getting there to a camp in June.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. It's interesting because a lot of them don't want it. Like, they don't understand the fact that they should get on campus. They want to wait till it's like an official one, especially if they get an early offer. And convincing them to do that earlier probably could be a process, because they're like, oh, I got this school recruiting me. I got this school recruiting me. I want to go here. I want to go here. I already have this offer here. Why do I need to go there?
Yeah, why would I go there? I have this offer, right? Like, why would I go there? I already know, what basically is, right, Dave, is what it comes down to is they want to be schmoozed. They want to be wined and dined. They want to feel important. They want to do that. They don't just want to go to a camp and be one of 450 guys standing in line waiting for their reps. What they don't understand is when they go to that camp and they get pulled over to the other field to run a 40 when everybody else is standing in line, like, that's the schmoozing part of it, right? So, and David and I, we've, been through this, and we try to advise guys on this stuff and how it goes. But ultimately, like, everybody's going to make their own decision. They're going to approach it a certain way, whatever we tell them, regardless of what they do. But the first thing is, like, you got to understand, is an offer real or is it not? Is it committable or is it not? And then start to feel out that school. Obviously, Coach, I think for you, again, another bonus is most of these guys that you deal with probably know what they want to do outside of football or career-wise. So they have some inkling, or, maybe they're a legacy kid, right? Like, hey, my dad went to Duke, my grandpa went to Duke, like, or one of those type situations. I think that's a benefit, again, for you to go. But the recruitment process, like you said, changed so much. Official visits now happening in June during camp season, right? Kids are haven't taken official visits when there's nobody on campus. It's like and we're talking about like, do you want to live there without football? That's really difficult to do when there's no one there.
Right. No, it's tough on these guys, but that's why we do this process every couple weeks. Where a kid thinks that his ceiling might be somewhere in the MAC, then all of a sudden he pops an ACC offer. So what was important to you in that process, now that might have changed because it's the options aren't the same. So that to me has been really successful for teaching our guys about the recruitment process. And like I said, what is it that you want, and because and it could be the same schools that are in the mix the whole time, but things could change after you make your visit. You stop in, well, I really like the way that it is in Madison. I really appreciate Piscataway or State College, and that's what we're going to continue to do is continue to educate these guys, make sure they understand what's real in the recruitment process and what's not. I've seen guys get offers and lose those offers along the way, and that happens. Either it could be coaching changes. You guys have seen this so much. College coaches move around quite a bit, and the previous staff offered, but this staff isn't as high on you, and so that offer might not exist anymore. But
yeah, that's the hardest part, to help parents understand like the timing of everything and why this happens. And just because you have offers, it doesn't mean that's going to stay that way. Do you advise them on anything with some of these you can't commit offers? Like, what do you tell a parent? Kid goes to camp. I don't know. Let's say he's one of your sophomores or something. School says, "Hey, we're going to offer you." Kid says, "Can I commit to you?" They say, "Well, you can't commit yet." Well, what do you tell them in that process? Like, that's not an offer. Like, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, I just tell these guys, the early offer that is, hey, we're really recruiting you. It's the old letter of letters of interest that you used to get in the 90s, where a school would say, hey, we're gonna take a look at your tape, blah blah blah. The early offer. Now, if you're a 26 and you're getting an offer, that's going to be a committable offer. No one's going to offer a kid, in the class of 26 that they can't commit now. But if you're a 27 or 28 and you're getting these offers, depending on who you are, a lot of times, they can't commit right away. So, we just tell these families that, look, if that's a school that you want and you're serious about committing there's a lot of work to be done. This is early in the process. You have the offer. Now earn the scholarship.
Right.
And they're two different things.
What about the conversation about they might play wide receiver? Let's say they play wide receiver for you, but in college, those coaches are going to be interested in them maybe as a DB or another position. Kid goes on campus. A coach pulls me aside, says, "We really like you, but we're not. We have other guys at receiver. Would you work here?" What do you tell your players from that standpoint? Because a lot of kids get themselves locked in to what they think they are, and it's hard for them to get out of that.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to that process and say, well, what's important to you? So, okay, so you love State College that much. You want to be at Penn State. Are you okay with now shifting from being a tight end to being an edge now? If you love Penn State and that's what you want, that's the opportunity you got to look at. And, it's all a case-by-case basis. But for a school like us, guys play multiple positions. You're going to play both sides of the ball. You're going to play special teams, and just get yourself recruited. Look, the end game is to get an education paid by your ability to play football, right? So go get a scholarship. And if that means moving your position, like we have a 26, defensive back who, some schools like him as a safety, some schools like him as a nickel, some as a, that kind of star position, which is kind of like an outside backer, and he's got the right mindset where he's just saying, I want to go to the right fit.
That makes sense. Well, getting the right fit and where you want is the most important thing, and unless you're dead set on being on some sort of a school, right, and you're willing to take less of an opportunity, but to be at that school, which Derek talked about, legacy parent, that might be the case, right? My dad played here, or my parent played here, or that's kind of where we go as a family. as far
Usually
as,
position specific, usually position specific too with that, Dave. You know, let's call it what it is. Quarterbacks usually want to be quarterbacks, plain and simple, and they're going to be dead set on, you know, hey, I'm not moving to tight end, or hey, I'm not going to go play wide out unless they're really dead set on going to, you know, whatever school might give them that opportunity. And it's just something like it seems like
a skill thing, a big offensive skill. Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah, and I've had a kid that was a 3-time All-Catholic quarterback at McDevitt, and he went to college, and he's an outside linebacker. Now he's an inside linebacker. So,
and he's seeing 3 snaps every series rather than not so much.
That's right.
I think that's the most important thing. You know, get that opportunity and take advantage of it. Okay, so now you talked about some of your guys like that play for you that got offers. Have you had situations where kids go away to college, now they want to transfer, and they reach out to you and get your advice on that? Is that something that's gone on?
All the time. All the time.
Okay.
You know,
Coach, and like I know it's like, hey, this is like, yeah, like it happens all the time. But if anything, that should humble you in that they trust in everything that you've taught them, you've coached them to do. That, you know, look, maybe it wasn't the right move to begin with, but they're still coming back to you to ask for that advice. Like that's a huge, you know, for me, like check on the box. Like, okay, I've done what I'm supposed to do here.
Yeah, and it does. It feels good. You know, once I coach a kid, you know, I have kids that are out. They're parents now. They're you know, they're in the workforce, and yeah, so I get these calls, and it is humbling. It is, you know, I appreciate that they respect my opinion of that, you know, but I love that they're calling me knowing that I'm not going to just tell them what they want to hear. You know, I've told them that no, you're not getting in the portal. That's a bad idea. Do you know what that portal looks like?
Yeah. Do you know how many thousands of kids had offers and scholarships and are now sitting there with nothing? Yeah, like,
right.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, and if this is entering your brain now, let's get you through spring ball, see what you can do. You know, go out, play the fall, and then if it's still not a right fit, you know, but you got to give it time. You know, you got to be able to adjust. You know, and sometimes, you know, through the recruitment process coming out of high school, you know, maybe they didn't follow it the right way, or you know, parameters change, things change at home. There's a lot of different reasons, but yeah, I mean, I have a call tomorrow with a kid that you know wants to go over some things, and you know, I think he's in a great spot, but you know, we're going to see what he has to say and what concerns that he has and why he might, you know, be interested in getting out there. But
it's tough when you jump in the portal like blind. I think that you put yourself in a bad situation. Obviously, the really, really top players in the portal are probably already have been contacted beforehand, and that's why they're jumping in the portal, because they already know there's something there for them. And then the rest of the players are kind of in that in-between world, like either not playing enough or, you know, could be multiple different circumstances. But that's where it's tough to advise them. It's like, okay, you know, if you're going up a level, you better have been a star at the level you were at. If you're going lateral and you were a backup, you better find the right fit. Like start with maybe schools that I guess were maybe recruiting you before, you know, that whole process is, do you ever have, I'm curious on this, cause you have some really, really top players, you know, cause I've been on your Twitter feed and you have some guys that are getting really heavily recruited. Do you ever have agents or these like NIL agents reach out to you to discuss players at all?
Over the last 6 months, it's been wild. Yeah, they do. They reach out because they know, kind of like we talked about, that kind of the high school coach is that pathway to the kid, you know. And for me, it's like, listen, you got to get through Algebra 1. You know, and we're talking, and it's a very slippery slope too with high school kids getting NIL money. With us being an international school, that could jeopardize a student visa. So you cannot take NIL money right now. There's different ways that you kind of have to work things, and that's the ongoing thing. You got to constantly educate yourself as to what the rules are. But But yeah,
right, because you could slip up and not have any clue. And believe me, most high school coaches in New Jersey, they don't have a clue. Like, and I'm not bashing everybody, but when it gets to this level of where things are at, because if we really want to do the numbers, how many high school coaches deal with a 5-star or a 4-star, or guys that are really talking to SEC schools or big time schools where these things are happening? There's exchange of money going on. There's like, now there's a financial literacy and an understanding of what rules work, and it's state to state. So most guys don't even know that this stuff exists when really it does. But you, coach, being in that situation itself, kudos to you for knowledge, knowing the rules, the knowledge to make sure that you're doing right. I mean, you're talking about student visas. Most high school coaches, they're not talking about student visas, coach. You know what I'm saying? So you're in your own entity.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like it's constantly evolving or changing or taking a left turn, and you have to stay on top of it. You have to make sure, number one, that you're protecting the kids. Like that's got to be at the forefront. And how am I making sure, that these 14, 15, 16-year-old kids are making the right decisions? They're not signing anything without, either coming to me or talking to the parents. But yeah, I mean, I've talked to several agents that they've come and, and I've met
wild.
Just to kind of hear out what they're saying. And, it's wild. It's interesting, but,
it's crazy.
I gotta protect the kids at the forefront. And, if that ever is jeopardized, it's time to stop coaching,
Yes.
It's like I said, I'm more worried about Algebra 1 for some of these guys before they start worrying about, endorsements and those sort of things. But
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I thought, I've heard of guys reaching out to coaches and trying to get a feel for this player or that player. And I was just curious if that was, I'm certain it was a thing, but I was curious if it was a thing. So,
and they're doing their job. They're trying to get in early on a kid that, okay, if you sign this kid in high school and he gets what you kind of get him onto your client list, and when he goes to college, and I mean, shoot, you look now in the SEC, if you're a 4-star offensive lineman, it's like it's starting at $400,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
right.
There's a ton of money for the top tier players, and there's a race to get a lot of it now in the next year because of the television money that's going to come internally to the schools. So they want to get as much as they can right now before that starts to get distributed, and then it ends up becoming only the top players that are getting that extra money from the outside, because a lot of the money is coming from the inside, from the actual school. So it's really, really interesting. So what going forward for the program? I guess this is my last question. Like where do you see everything going for your program? What are you trying to do next steps to continue to build?
For me, I'd love to get our JV program back. That's something that we don't have right now. High school football should be about development. It's not about getting all the guys playing right away and let's go. I want to get those kids that are, that on the back end of the roster. I want to get them meaningful minutes and develop them, especially if, you're a quarterback or you're, an offensive lineman, that you want to see some real live action that matters. And so for me, it's about getting our roster. I'd love to get us to 40 at some point. I think at that point, we can start to look at bringing the JV program back. But really, it's just about there's kids walking around in the school right now that would be great at football. But
I was just going to ask you that, Coach. There's no way you're not recruiting across the green on a spring day. Like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, there's kids that are 6'7" walking around. Like, you could play edge.
Coach, it's that American football thing. Some of those international dudes are like helmets, shoulder pads. We got no clue. What is this? Like, figure it out.
Right. So, but David, just to answer your question, it's really, increasing our roster, getting, the development piece back in for the JV for the younger guys, but really getting the alumni back here, supporting us and loving what they see. And I think we've started that. We've done a nice job, but it's just, we got to take that next step.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. No, it's because I think the prep school programs that really have an opportunity here to really build their programs in a different way than it was before. because of the way everything is. And so it's cool. It's cool, really cool to hear the way you're doing it and your insight on it. That being outside of that Philadelphia area, there's a lot of players. So it's a matter of getting the right guys in there. But there's no shortage of football players out in that area.
Oh, there's a ton of talent. Like I said, it's always about the right kid. Just like them picking a college, it's about there's a lot more to Pennington than just football and the academic piece. It's not easy, but we want the guys that want to take on that challenge too.
Absolutely.
Right. That's great way to put it, Coach.
Coach, it's been great having you on. Really good talking to you. I'm glad we were able to get you back on here, and you're doing great things, and much continued success to you.
I appreciate that. You guys have been great. If you ever want me back, just let me know. I know it was a challenge to get me here, but we're at the end.
Coach, it's all right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.
No problem, Coach.
No, like you said,
thanks, X's and O's, so get you doing.
When we get you back, Coach, you'll have a JV squad by then. So
there we go.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
All right, Coach. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye. All right. That was really good. Really great guy. Really nice guy. I think.
Listen, I know it was tough, like figuring out how to get him in and whatnot. Because look, like his admissions job, that probably ain't easy at a place like that, right? And you're talking, whether it be international, whether it be just, other students themselves. Like obviously, we know that at schools like that, the livelihood of the school itself is the admissions department. Who's coming in, who's coming not, and to hold, having to uphold and obviously keep a standard, right? I mean, admissions, that's got to be a lot of work and a lot of stuff on top of now, being a high level football program. You know what I mean? What I did was like he's basically taken over for like 2 long time head coaches. Like that's his thing, right? Everybody's got a niche as a coach. Like he takes over for guys that have been at programs for a long time. And I know that's a difficult road, So kudos to him, dude. He runs a nice program. And no post grad, right?
Yeah, that was surprising. Interesting. I guess if you're that's becoming a big thing there, reclassing instead of post grad at a lot of these prep schools.
Right. Where it used to be the post grad was the thing. Like, hey, I'm going to this place to be a because I can post grad, right? Or it was like now, we saw it with, some of our guys, they're like, oh, I'm going to go to this school and I'm going to reclass. Oh, okay. So different setting though. That's for sure.
Makes a big difference. It's interesting. Very interesting.
Huge difference. Roster size was a shock to me too.
Yeah. Under 40.
Whew. It's like group 1.
And they have some studs. Like you go on his Twitter, he has like 4 or 5 studs.
Yeah. Like
legit. Legit.
Like, which studs. Is why he knew exactly what it was like with street agents.
Yeah, well, and what you're getting now, though, is you do have street agents, but you're getting agencies. So, like NFL agencies that are
now reaching out to the highest of the high NIL guys in high school.
Yeah. So it's really not. It is that there are guys like that. I'm sure all over the place.
Of course.
But there's if you're really, really a high level guy, you're going to get Drew Rosenhaus's team reaching out to you. You're going to get
his high school department, right? Like now there's a high school department.
I don't know what they call it, but I know that they're definitely reaching out and trying to find
prospects.
What the
I'm trying to think of what they would. I'm trying to think of how they would, categorize it. Because they're still underage, right?
I only know a few people. I know of a few of them that I've talked to, but it's just I think they just view it as representation as a whole. If you think about it, it's not much different than let's use entertainment.
Well, look at other sports,
singers,
right? Or others. Oh, okay, yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Singers or actors, right? So, you got some of them that are adults, right? That you're representing, and then you have some that are teenagers, and So that's the slippery slope on all of it, I guess. But that is what that is kind of. That's why these agencies don't really, especially the bigger ones. It's not. They're already used to doing it. They're already used to dealing with on the entertainment side, music and acting. So it's kind of like it was natural move for them. Athletes are, I know it sounds crazy, but essentially when you get to the next level, meaning college and pro, it's entertainment.
100%.
Jay Billis said it best yesterday. He said, why do I think athletes should get money? He's like, well, if colleges weren't running a $1 billion entertainment department, which they are, then I would say, hey, maybe it should be something different. But they're literally running a $1 billion business, an entertainment business to do with sports, and so those guys should, if they're obviously good enough that the market dictates it, that they should get money. It's very, very interesting when you think about it from that. Like, it is strange in the sense that, like, here's an public university, any public university, and one of their jobs is literally entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of an evolved thing, but one of their biggest jobs is literally entertainment, and sports is the biggest entertainment on any campus there is by far,
and especially football, where it's once a week.
Yeah, it's
right. Like, you are literally, like, think about Broadway shows. Even Broadway shows are twice a day for the most part on certain days or whatever, right? But like, this happens once a week, and like, it's an event, right?
And there's lots of sports probably going on. You might have baseball and baseball playing over here where there's some money come. I'm not saying the same money as football, but like some money coming in here. Then you got spring games, some money coming in here. Then you got basketball money coming in here. Like, it's an ongoing entertainment thing. And if you think about it, like, if you brought, let's say, to Montclair State, or UConn or wherever, you brought a singer.
God.
Yeah, well, that money just goes to the singer. It doesn't go to the university. They might charge for using the facilities, right?
Right.
But this is actually entertainment that they get all the money
or
for.
The concessions, right? Go to whoever
Everything.
or whatever. Yeah.
So that's like, it's a gigantic revenue source, and obviously now they all recognize that it is that.
Of course.
But it's very, very. It's interesting. Like, it's an interesting model with public schools making obviously the level of money. I mean, private schools, you understand a little more in college, at least, because they charge extreme amount of money from Division III to Division I. Like, Division III schools are charging extreme amount of money at the private school level, right?
Yep.
But public school, it's a $1 billion enterprise athletically, with a reduced admission. The more students you get into those schools, the more people you can entertain, if you think about it. So, like, if
absolutely,
yeah, I mean, you want a good education, but you also want more people, because that's more students to kind of interact with your entertainment venue.
But also, you talk about, like, smaller, right? Like, look at small universities. They now have to charge more money per student, whereas you get these large, you know what I mean? Like, it's a cost. It's a business.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a business.
A business. Publicly funded.
Private enterprise.
Yeah, that. Could you imagine if you had like if you're, I don't know, the school you work, Brick Township, like publicly funded, right? And then you're able to really like churn out like a multi-million.
Think about it. Passaic County Tech, right? Freeholder money.
Right. Imagine they were able to churn out multi-million
public education. But that's why they get paid. Teachers get paid very well there. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's interesting. It's really interesting how Billis had some good takes on it. Jay Billis, I saw yesterday. He had a really, really like
Jay Billis,
well thought out. Like, I don't know. There's some things I disagree with. Like, What's that? Yeah, like the guy played
Like
at Duke.
Duke Billis? Yeah.
Yeah. He has
He
some good
usually
takes
takes some hard stands on some things.
He usually does. And
Well, I like him.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's something
And it's
that
usually like thought out. Like it's not just
very
something
well
crazy
thought
for
out.
clickbait. Yeah, he's a smart dude.
It very well thought out, and he had like he talked about the European soccer model, and he talked about the entertainment. He had some really good takes on
It
it.
seems that a lot of people always go back to that. You know what I mean?
Well,
a lot of people go back to, hey, this European soccer model kind of, right? Like that almost seems to be like the groundwork for a lot of things. Or maybe like what people try to attain, or hey, if we could make it work like this, then we would be, you know what I mean? Like that's the way to do it.
Well, what they're thinking about doing, well, not thinking, they're going to do it. When that the TV money comes in, what they're going to do is sign them the contracts, and then if a player goes to another school, that school is going to have to buy them out, like you do a college coach, you buy them out of their contract, right, pay the school, and then the other thing that people are thinking about, which I think they should think about, is which will limit people's thoughts on transferring, is a transfer fee, like which is what European, like if
right.
If you're going to play for Real, so you charge a transfer fee so that school that loses the player,
right, now has the money to go get another one.
Yep. So now they have that money. So I think that will also have.
But how is that going to work? Because aren't they capping everything at like 20 million for athletic departments?
22
or
million.
22 million per athletic department across all sports, correct?
Not everybody's going to get 22 million, but that's what it's capped at. So, for example, I can only tell you UConn because I just know because we talk about it. It's always like we're in this discussion with it.
There's no way UConn's getting 22 million.
They're not getting 22 million, right? So let's say they get 12. Okay,
10 of it better go to basketball.
Right. Well, that's the issue is it's going to 3 places, but other places want money, right? And now in every school, it's going to primarily 3 places, but other than maybe like, I'll use UConn as this example. Hockey was very good. They just lost.
Damn right.
So hockey players may get some money, right? So, but at LSU, baseball's great, right? So maybe they make money. Baseball, not like football or basketball, but they make money.
Yes. Yeah, right.
So they may get some of those players. They've had so many pros out of LSU. Some of those players are going to get some money. So that's the allocation part. That's probably why they're going to have contract, which they should. And
contract-based stuff, right?
It'll also make players think about it. I think that's the thing you want to do. If you go here, you want to really think about why you want to go there, because now you're under a contract like anyone else, right?
Now this one and done, or like, hey, or like, and by one and done, I mean like transfer after a year will be less.
A mega player might still be able to do that, like a super.
Like what's his name? The kid from Michigan that got 13, whatever it was, because of Portnoy and all those guys.
People might be willing to buy it out because they think they're that good. But I can tell you that there's no doubt that I would say that it would slow a lot more of it.
Right. Or at least they would think longer about it.
Yeah. The negative on all of it is, which has nothing to do with the top tier, which has more to do with the lower tier, is that any mid-major or any like those schools, even D3, you get a really good player, or like he happens to become like a superstar. It's going to be more than likely that they're gonna bolt. Like it's going to be hard to keep them unless you're Johns Hopkins. I go to Johns Hopkins. It's such a good school. I want to stay there. I don't want to take the risk, for $50,000, But other than that, like if you're at an NJAC and you're a superstar, like really a superstar, dude, you're definitely going up, right? Like. Because you could go to another state school.
Guys who aren't superstars want to do that.
What's that?
You know what I mean? Like guys who aren't superstars who play okay.
Yeah. But if you're definitely a superstar, like I'm going from one state school education to another state school. What does it matter for me? I'll take the money, right, and I'll play at a higher level.
100%.
It's
There's
only
no doubt about that.
It's so that part's going to be, and that's what's hard. That was what was hard in the NCAA tournament. Like, there's no mid majors in the top group, so it's going to be hard for them because they're not going to be able to pay for those players. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution for it, and maybe there isn't, and maybe it doesn't
Probably
even
not,
matter.
dude.
It probably doesn't even matter.
It might not even matter. It's probably all a wash, to be honest.
Yeah, I just don't think it matters. You know what I mean? Because you're going to be in the world that you're in, and that's it. So, but anyway, that was very good. He was really like had his like kind of ducks really in a row, like of how he wanted to do things. So I thought that was really good. All right, tomorrow, no, or Thursday?
We're back Friday. We're back with the head of Moravian strength and conditioning. So he across all sports, by the way. Moravian University.
He does all of it. Okay.
Does very all good. Of it. Obviously his concentration is in football, but
very good. All right, man. Here we go.
All right, man.